This is Tristan, the bow tie toy guy. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In today's episode of my toy and doll hunting series, we are going on a road trip in Terre Haute, Indiana to check out the annual parking lot sale at Lair Toys. This is a locally owned toy store. We will film the vendors in the parking lot first, and then I'll go inside the store itself to show you what it looks like. At the end, stay tuned for the haul portion to see if I pick up anything awesome today for my personal collection. Let's get started. The very first vendor when I entered the parking area had dolls, which is awesome, both loose as well as mint in box, vintage as well as modern. As you can see down here, there are some Rainbow High, LOL Surprise, OMG, and Lala Loopsy dolls. As we move our way up, this vendor had a mint on card vintage clone doll called Twisty, which was cool to see. I was very tempted by that. And they also had a good selection of loose Monster High dolls. I know a lot of doll collectors don't typically like the budget swim dolls, especially with painted, molded fashions, but some of the earlier Monster High ones I actually like. There were several G3 Monster High dolls mint in box, as well as this gorgeous Ariel doll from The Little Mermaid. And there were some vintage 90s Golden Book Barbie puzzles and a mint in box bubbling mermaid Barbie. As we continue to explore this vendor, she had several mint in box Barbies as well. This My First Barbie was really cute with this pretty dress, a part of the Easy to Dress line. She also had vintage Barbie accessories like this comb, mirror, and hairbrush set, as well as a lunchbox. Look at this awesome Matchbox Robotech flight uniform mint on card. That was cool to see, as well as the Spice World collection of Spice Girls dolls. This vendor also had some loose My Little Ponies from Equestria Girls, as well as like standard My Little Ponies. The other tables were set up by her husband. I love that they work together where she covers the girls' toys and he covers the boys' toys. There are awesome Ninja Turtles buttons in this little case, as well as some Monster in My Pocket figures. Now let's move on to the next vendor. They had a large bin filled with loose toys, as well as this rack toy, a space pilot jet ray gun. That was cool to see. On their table, they had some knockoff Thundercats figures, which was awesome. I don't see things like that very often. And as we circle around, they also had other bins filled with loose toys and this vintage Transformers 3D jigsaw puzzle. That was awesome, as well as Marvel Legends and another bin filled with fast food drive-through toys. Do you enjoy digging through bins like this when you go to toy shows and flea markets? Let me know in the comments down below. This bin was filled with plushes like Star Wars, Squishmallows, Crayola, and Care Bears. There was even a Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame plush, as well as a fakey My Little Pony hiding in there. On the table above, there were vintage LJN Thundercats figures, as well as an Impkins doll. This next vendor had a ton of VHS like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Star Trek, The Terminator, The Mummy, a little bit of everything. As we work our way around, they had Funko Pop vinyl figures. Of course, we knew we were going to see those at some point. And they also had a mint in box Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Legacy Dragon Dagger. Look at this giant Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles playset. Let's walk over to the next set of tables. They had a bin on the ground with plushes like this Santa Gudetama, which is hilarious, Cinema Roll. There were several anime characters and Pokemon, as well as Sanrio characters like Kuromi. In this bin, they had a variety of toys, action figures from DC, Marvel, as well as Star Wars. On the table, they had a vintage MC Hammer doll made by Mattel. This vendor had a bin of plushes, including this Cabbage Patch Kids plush for sale, and there was even a vintage Barbie hiding in there. I always love seeing vintage frame tray puzzles like this incredible Hulk puzzle. Now let's browse through the Sewer Lair Toys store itself. They have it organized by IP, which is really awesome. In this case, we're browsing through the Star Wars section, and as we turn around, you will also see the video game characters section. I actively collect Super 7's reaction figures, so this Blanca from Street Fighter 2 definitely stuck out to me. Look at these amazing glass cabinets all the way down, filled with vintage and modern goodness. As we scroll around to the bottom, this particular cabinet has a variety, including vintage Mighty Morphin Power Rangers toys. As we scroll up, this next shelf has vintage Care Bears as well as a variety of wrestling figures. Above that, they have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, This next glass cabinet has vintage LJN Thundercats, and behind them are Sectars. Below that, we have some Digimon as well as collector glasses. In this same cabinet, they also have Star Wars. As we scroll over, they had a section of Funko mystery minis where you can choose ones that you're potentially missing, as well as a variety of other figures like these Cuphead minis. In the corner of the store, they had this insane like superhero costume with a chicken suit head on top of it. And then in the very corner, they had board games and puzzles. In this section, they had some My Little Ponies, as well as a vintage Barbie hanging out in the back. They had an awesome kaiju section, and directly below that, they had Transformers. Of course, I had to get a close-up of Atom Bomb. I have this plush at home. They also had a mint-in-box vintage Knickerbocker Annie doll. In this section, they had some awesome mint-on-card Kiss action figures. In the very back of the store, they had a section for Super 7's Thundercats Ultimates figures. Next to that, they had a small dolls section with G3 Monster High as well as Disney dolls. They also had a few loose vintage strawberry shortcake dolls. And there was one vintage mint in box Barbie hiding in there, the Harley Davidson Barbie. Look at this awesome boxed vintage Fort Carium playset from Bravestar. They also had a large section in the front of the store for Funko Pop vinyl figures, as well as this section for boxed Power Rangers, like this awesome vintage Bandai Power Rangers in Space Deluxe Mega Winger. Because the store is called Sewer Lair Toys, we are ending our tour today with one of their sections for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I am back from checking out the Sewer Lair Toys annual parking lot sale and the store itself. It was amazing. I love smaller events like this because it's very community-based, where you can have great conversations with other toy collectors. So shout out to everybody that I had a great conversation with today. Let me show you my haul. I found some pretty cool stuff. So we'll start with, and this may be difficult to see because they're larger dolls. I need to restore her. She's in pretty rough shape, but I'm actually fairly good at restoring vintage Hugga Bunch dolls. And I have an entire showcase of just Hugga Bunch merchandise. And so I found this one is Huggins. And like I said, she needs to be restored. I have another outfit that I'm going to put her in, but I can get her cleaned up and have her pretty much look almost brand new. So I picked her up, super adorable dolls, a little bit bigger than a Cabbage Patch Kids, specifically the vintage toddler Cabbage Patch Kids. And then from that same vendor, I picked out the 1989 Barbie Ice Capades bodysuit. I didn't have this loose, and I'm actually going to use it to restyle a doll with a large, like a tulle skirt, like a tutu. And I'm going to use this bodysuit as the base. And then also from that same vendor, I found a Golden Books Barbie Still Factory Sealed puzzle released in 1993. Really pretty image of Barbie in a wedding gown. I actually have this wedding gown, I believe, at home in my collection. I'll have to check. So I picked that up. And then last but not least, let's switch gears into action figures from Masters of the Universe, specifically the 2000X era. I found the He-Man Eagle Fight Pack. So essentially it's Zor, but it can clip onto He-Man as well. This was released in 2002, and I got a great deal on all of this. So I picked that out. And that is everything I found. Please let me know in the comments down below, did you see anything that you would have picked up? And thank you so much for watching.